Okay. Good evening, everyone. I want to welcome you to uh, Business Society. So this is going to be an introductory lecture. All right. So I'm not so sure if James had managed to talk to you about in terms of payment for this lecture. If he hasn't, I'll urge you maybe to go and talk to him so that he can clarify that part. However, on my side, I'm going to tell you how we are going to conduct the lectures for this module. Today is going to be an introductory lecture. All right. So we're going to start by talking about, what the module is all about, and then we get into maybe a certain part of unit one, so that at least you can appreciate the method of delivery. How do I deliver, the content in this lecture? So what I'm going to do in these lectures, I'm going to cover the content and I'll be sending you in form of videos so you can watch them offline. So I'm going to assist you with, I don't know if you do KCQs, but if you don't do KCQs, that's fine. I'll assist you with the assignment writing. So when the assignment is out, then we will be able to do the assignment with you. So just make sure that by the end of February, you have made your initial deposit for the module so that we can start, doing the assignment with you. Because obviously, we don't want to do the assignment when you have not paid. We can't do the assignment when you haven't paid, the deposit. Because what if we do the assignment and you don't, and then you run away? So that's the reason why we're saying you just pay the deposit and then we do the assignment and then um, you finish later on. Then towards the end of the semester, we are also going to have lectures where we're going to do examination preparation. So we're going to explain to you how do you approach the exams, how do you answer, things under, the limited time and so forth. So today, let me share the screen. So today there's nothing much that we're going to talk about. Like I said, it is, what do you call it? It is an introductory lecture. So obviously, obviously we're just going to talk about the introductory part and then, just get into a little bit of unit one. I think we're going to cover unit one. It's not that long, the whole of unit one today, so that at least you can appreciate, how I conduct my lecture. So before I proceed, just feel free. I usually like my lectures to be interactive. When I mean interactive, when I say interactive, I mean, we want to engage. So you don't have to wait for me to finish all the slides and then you ask your questions, right? So when I'm talking or explaining a point, and you feel that maybe you are not getting it, I didn't really do justice to it, you can unmute yourself, you can write on the chat whatever method you think you are comfortable with. You can just highlight to me at that particular moment before I go any further so that we discuss and we can, help one another concerning that whatever concept that we'll be talking about at that moment, so that when we proceed, we are all on the same page. So like I said, this is Business and Society. My name is Kuda Sibanda. I'll be the one who will be taking you for this course. So let's start by defining what business and society is, or what is it all about? What are we going to be talking about in this module? So business and society is a field of study that examines the interactions and relationships between business entities, government institutions, and the broader societal context in which they operate in business and society. So business, we're talking about the business entities, And then also, so sometimes it's called business, government, and society, BSG. You will see as we continue there. So it involves the business, it involves the government, it involves the society itself. Because remember, the business and the government, they exist within a societal context. So obviously there has to be a society where these two entities operate within. So that's what the module is all about. You want to see the relationship, you want to see the interactions. So that is the definition. So the interdisciplinary field, it explores the impact of business activities on the society and the reciprocal influence of societal values and norms and expectations on business. So this field of study examines various aspects. So it includes, in this module, we're going to talk about the corporate social responsibility. We're going to talk about ethical business practices. We're going to talk about what is called sustainability. We're going to talk about corporate governance, stakeholder engagement, the role of business in addressing societal issues such as poverty, inequality, environment degradation, human rights, or maybe the issue of gender equality. All right. So how does the business, incorporate, diverse genders, right, within the organizations? I think, back then, we know that within a business structure, you would rarely find a female figure, right? But obviously now with the coming in of women rights and things like that, there's supposed to be gender equality within the business. So those are the things that we will be talking about also in this module. So what to expect from the module? So what is the aim? What is the module all about? So the module aim is to help students understand three key areas. So you must understand the business, you must understand the government, and you must understand the society and the interaction between each of these components. So the main focus is on how businesses influence and are influenced by government and society. So obviously, a business, they are within, I don't know if it's a perfect word, but let's say jurisdiction. I don't know if if it's applicable here. What I'm just trying to say is, as long as a business is within a country has government. So obviously, it's either business they influence the government or they are influenced by, by the government, right? So there are businesses that influence governments. So all right. So basically it's how the business are influenced by the government and the society. So we obviously the students has to explore how the dynamics in this relationship impact a manager's role. All right. So obviously uh, you have to understand how the dynamic of this relationship impact a manager's role. So the ultimate goal is to develop reflective business practitioners who can apply and question theoretical concepts in the real work situation. So obviously, the purpose of this module is to familiarize students with the significance of what is called business, government, society, BGS, right? So the dynamics, right, of this BSG, right? So the student must familiarize with the significance of the dynamics as a strategic approach, right, by business to achieve their goals. So obviously, each and every company, they have their goals, but they need to understand the significance of this, what you call it, interrelationship, so that they can use it to their own advantage. So businesses need to be responsive, not only to economic factors, but also to non-economic aspects of their environment. So the field of BGS, it covers various aspects, including, we talked about that, right? Corporate social responsibility, ethical decision making, and so forth. So obviously, in this module, we are going to highlight, the corporate social responsibility, the ethics, globalization, the importance of law and regulations within the business environment, and also the historical context. So the underlying theme generally, it connects this topic, right, in okay, so let's say management basically is the underlying theme that is connecting all this topic. Because remember, we are talking about corporate social responsibility, ethics, globalization. We are talking about this in relation to a business. So obviously, the people that have the burden of this is the manager or the people that are within the management. So we want the students now to grasp the broader implications of these factors and apply this understanding in practical and real world scenarios. So that is the aim, the main aim of this module. So now let's look at chapter unit 1, right? The introductory, where you are being, taken into the field itself, right? So let's look at what we call the key aspects of the business and society relationship. So let's start by defining what is called the corporate social responsibility. All right, so the ethical and social responsibilities of businesses are a central focus. So obviously, when we're talking about ethical responsibility, we're talking about social responsibility. We are saying that when a business is operating, it must operate having, ethical values within it, right? So a very good example, let's say people that are into, I'm not so sure if here in South Africa, there are people that mine oil. So let's assume that there's oil in South Africa, and then you find, let's say BP or maybe whatever mining company, oil mining company will be available. So just imagine that these guys, they are mining oil, but yet some of the waste, they are putting it back to the environment. So obviously, it's not the company is not responsible, right? Environmentally, it's not responsible, right? Or sometimes maybe the way, corruption and so forth happening within the company, definitely it's not upholding ethical responsibility. So the company itself must have ethical responsibilities and social responsibilities, and that must be the central focus of the business. So this now involves understanding how companies contribute to societal well-being beyond economic consideration, including environmental stewardship. So that a very good example of what I was telling you about, the company that will dispose waste without considering the environment and the people that live out there, right? So obviously the companies must, must include, environmental stewardship, ethical business practices, and community engagement. All right. So now let's talk about government relations. So in the last slide, we're talking about corporate social responsibility, why a company must uphold ethical responsibility, why a company must uphold social responsibilities. Now let's see another facet, right? Which might look as if it's independent, but yet it's related to what we're talking about. So let's talk about government relationships. So examining the relationship between businesses and government entities, including the regulatory environment, policy influence, and adherence to laws and regulations. So obviously, when a company is operating, right, there are some relationships, right, that they have with the government. So you will see that they must maybe have what they call a regulatory, policy that they must adhere to. They must have, let's say, maybe laws and things that they must adhere to also, right? So you will see that maybe people, they are operating within the mining sector. Then the government will tell you that this is how you're supposed to dispose your waste. This is how you're supposed to treat workers. This is how you're supposed to do this and that, this and that, this and that, right? So those things, they are there, right, to assist the businesses to uphold ethical responsibilities and also to uphold, social responsibility. Now let's look at another facet there, which is stakeholder engagement, right? So stakeholder engagement now, we're talking about recognizing and managing the diverse interests and expectation of stakeholders, such as customers, such as employees, investors, communities, and NGOs. So basically, what we're just saying is a company will have various and diverse stakeholders, right? So the company must be able to recognize the stakeholders and also manage the stakeholder. So that's why there's what they call stakeholder engagement. So stakeholders are not the investors only, but a customer is a stakeholder, an employee is a stakeholder, the community itself that the company is operating in is also a what? A stakeholder. Now let's look at another facet. So it's more like these are definition of terms, and these are very, very critical when we go deeper into the subject itself. So let's look at sustainability. All right. So sustainability, now we're talking about assessing the environmental and social impacts of business activities and promoting sustainable practices that consider long-term implications. So I put a very good illustration there. I think you can see people that are trying to, they're trying to patch the earth, right? So you can see that the earth maybe has gone through some things that are making it to be, uh, uh, I can't say it's not sustainable, but definitely it's, let's say, polluting the world. Like, for example, you can see that we are manufacturing plastics, right? But no, these plastics, they are not biodegradable. I know there are plastics that are biodegradable, but most of the plastics that we have today, they are not biodegradable. And now, let's say maybe people that are living in Cape Town, the coastal areas, you come to realize that some of these plastics, they will find their way to the sea. And now, when those plastics, they maybe because of nature, it gets windy, it gets hot and so forth. So they get to be, there's going to be, like, let's say, what I'm trying to find a word. They are reduced to small units, right? Some of these units, they may not be visible with the eye, but because it's not degradable, right? It will just be floating in the sea, and some of these sea creatures, they end up, eating those things, thinking that it's food. And once they get into the system, there's no way of letting it out. So one, the water is polluted. Two, the ecosystem itself, the animals, right? They are now, no longer safe. So obviously, there is need that the company assess the environmental impacts and the social impacts that it does. So when they assess that they are promoting, they need to promote sustainable practices that they should consider that consider long-term implications, because if they don't do that, they'll end up doing like the people that in that illustration that are trying to patch up, the earth. Now let's look at the ethics and the value. So there's something called business ethics. Like, so you can see from the illustration, they were talking about, the behavior, the certain behavior that is expected, in a business. You expect fairness. You don't expect corruption. You expect respect, regardless of who you are, regardless of your gender, regardless of what you believe. You expect respect, you expect connection, you expect a vision, you expect good leadership. So those are the pillars of business ethics. So generally now, when we're talking about the ethics and the values, the company must be able to evaluate the ethical dimensions of the business decisions and actions, and it must understand the role of corporate values in shaping the organizational behavior. So business ethics is a very critical, important role in this in this module. And then there's what we call globalization and diversity. So now you can see from the picture there, it's talking about, diversity in terms of culture. So you can see red Indians, white people, yeah, let's say Indian and colored people, then black people, and then we're talking about the Arabs. So obviously, when people are in a company, they must be able, right, to mix and mingle with the diverse societies and cultures, right? So there must not be hate, right? There must not be hate within a company. There must not be discrimination based on color. There must not be discrimination based on looks and whatsoever. And now you can see that there's a newer term because of the internet, the era of internet, the era of the fourth industrial revolution. So you can see that it's now easy to do what is called globalization. So it's easy for companies now to have branches all over the world. So obviously a company might have roots in America, but if it is to embrace globalization, they might end up having a branch here in South Africa. So obviously the culture and the people that are here is different from people that are united in US. In US, there you have your Caucasian whites, right? The white people, right? And then here the majority are black people. So obviously our culture, the way we grew up, the way we do business, of course there are principles, but sometimes culture also it influences how one approaches certain matters in within the business. Because remember, a business itself has got a mini society because you spend much time at work. So obviously you become, family with the people there. You get connection. So obviously when people connect, their emotions attached. There are a lot of things that people invest in. So obviously you wouldn't want to come to a place where all the time you are discriminated based on your ethnicity or where you are coming from, right? So obviously, those things need to be addressed in terms of globalization. So companies must consider the global context of the business operation and the impact they have on diverse societies and cultures. So now let's look at the importance. So now we have looked at the various dimensions that make up business and society. Now let's talk about the importance of the module itself, the importance of the field itself. So in the universe of human endeavor, the BGS field plays a vital role, and the environment created by the interplay of business, government, and society impact how business operates. So managers must navigate and understand this environment for effective decision making. So, for example, just imagine you're a manager and you're a manager of a multi-billion-dollar, let's say, company, and then you don't adhere to regulatory, practices or policies or whatever. Obviously, the government will be after you. And let's look, for example, you're a company and you don't pay tax. Tax. You're supposed to pay tax to the government. You see, so that's not a social responsibility. And also that's not an ethical responsibility. Yeah, you are not a socially and ethically, ethical responsible. I'm not so sure if that does make sense. So obviously the managers must navigate and understand the environment. They must understand, okay, this is what the government needs. This is what the government expects from us. This is what the society expects from us. So that's the reason why okay, I'm not so sure if you are aware of this. Some companies, they actually plow back to the society. So I think you'll see that I've seen companies maybe that will have like draws, competition draws, where they are giving cars and maybe houses to back to the society. So there is this thing that when a company plows back to the society, there may be cuts regarding the amount of tax that they may pay to the government. So obviously, they're just trying to, to encourage companies to, to be to make sure that they pay particular attention to the societies that they operate in. So now let's look at definitions of terms and conditions. Oh, okay. So I mixed up my slides, right? Okay. All right. So let's see here. So before we talk about the definition of terms and conditions, let's talk about the impact. Okay, I think this slide is lost. Sorry, guys. I'm not so sure what happened. I didn't see it when I was checking this. All right, so don't mind the previous slide. I think it's lost. So now let's look at the definition of terms, right? That I used in this module here. So now the field is, so this field that we're talking about, business society, is explained as the study of the interrelationships among three elements. So obviously, three elements, business, government, and society. So these interrelations, they change over time. But generally, they are basic terms that are used in this discipline. So the first one is what we call business. So obviously, a business, it encompasses a broad range of actions, institutions and operations, the purpose of which is to make a profit by providing products and services that satisfy human needs. Obviously, a business is any entity that make a profit by providing products and services. Then the government, it refers to the structures and processes that authoritatively make and apply policies and rules. Obviously, everyone knows what a government is, right? Then a society is a network of human relations, including ideas, institutions, and material things. Then ideas are intangible objects of thought, right? You cannot touch an idea, right? That's why it's called intangible. Institutions, they are formal patterns of relationships that link people together to accomplish a goal. A range of institutions is necessary to support markets. And then there are what we call material things that are tangible and artifacts of the society. So basically, these are the definition of terms and concepts. Now, let's look at what we call the four basic models that make up what is called the BGS relationship. So which means that these are the pillars, right? The pillars of what do you call it, of BGS relationship. So the BGS relationship is complex, multifaceted. It involves intricate interactions between business entities, government, and the broader society. So obviously, to comprehend this dynamic interplay, there must be models that have been developed, right? So each of these models, they offer a unique perspective on the distribution of power, of influence, of responsibilities within the BGS framework. So these models, they serve as analytical tools, providing insights into the future of relationships and guiding our understanding of the roles played by the different stakeholders. So the first model that we're going to talk about is what is called the market capitalism model. So the diagram that you are seeing on the right side there is actually the diagram within your study module. So let's describe first the model, and then we talk about the importance of that model in in the framework. So the market capitalism model, it presents the BGS relationship as aligned with the principles of classical capitalism, right? So it views social responsibility primarily through the lens of economic performance and its impact on societal welfare. So this model suggests that businesses operate within a market influenced by both economic forces and socio-political pressures, and it reflects classical capitalism driven by private firms competing in free market with limited government intervention. So basically, when we're talking about capitalism, we're talking about private firms, basically. So these are not public firms. These are private companies that are owned by people. Then here and there, they have regulations from the government interventions. So, for example, when you're talking about capitalism, the opposite of capitalism is communism. You see, so communism is what is in China and Russia. You don't see much of private firms having much of the upper world. That's why you see, if you're a person who follows after news, you hear that once in a while, in China, they have a crackdown for, the CEOs of private companies. So they'll tell you this billionaire disappeared, right? And then after a while he appears, and then you will hear that they were incarcerated by the police, by the government. That's what communism does. It doesn't give power to private firms. They want to get a hold of each and every firm, right? But however, now capitalism is what we see here in Africa, not here in South Africa, and also in first world countries, right? Where you see, private firms having the upper end of the economy, right? But then here and there, then you see, government intervention. So what is the importance of the market capitalism model, right? So understanding the market capitalism model is crucial for managers and policymakers as it shapes perspective on the role of business in society. So it highlights the emphasis of economic performance and the market's influence on business operations. So this model, it helps us to appreciate the historical context of market economies and the evolution of capitalism, offering insights into the foundation of what is called laissez-faire economic philosophy. So you can see from the diagram there that you can see, you can see this socio-political environment. So this is influencing the market environment, right? And this is the business itself. So basically, we don't see much of government. We don't see much of pressure from the government influencing the private firm. So these guys, they're almost free to do whatever they like. Then there's what we call the dominance model. So you can see on the right side there, that is the pictorial depiction of the model, right, from the study guide. So the dominance model, basically, it portrays what we call a hierarchical structure where the business and government dominate the societal landscape. So this model, often critiqued by business scholars, suggests that business hold unchecked power, right? Leading to concentration of wealth and influence among a privileged few. It raises concern about undemocratic power dynamics, challenging the democratic theory that posits governments and leaders should represent the interests expressed by the people. So you can see that these are environmental forces. So these are business government, and then the masses are all on the bottom. So basically, right, it's more like there is some companies that will have influence of power on maybe, let's say, the market and the government, right? So once in a while you can see this in first world countries, Let me give you a very good example. I'm not so sure if this is a very perfect example of dominance model. You see people, I know of some of inventors that are in Africa that have invented cars that run on water. You see that nowadays, all the cars that we are buying, it's either it's using diesel or it's using petrol. Nowadays, there are few cars that are coming in that use what we call hybrid, right? So you might get a car that is hybrid, uses both fuel and electric battery. Few cars in South Africa, I think very, very few cars. I think we can actually number them. They actually use electrical batteries, lithium batteries, or what they call electrical vehicles, EV. So I don't know if people in South Africa, there are people that that have like Teslas, right? So the reason why I'm saying this is the reason why we see they are groundbreaking technology that allows people to stay away from fossil fuel. Because remember, if we use fuel like petrol, it's dangerous for the environment. We've got the issue of global warming, right? So obviously, once we burn a lot of carbon, it tends to a lot of carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is not good because it destroys what is called the ozone layer, right? And it then speed up what we call global warming. So obviously, companies like BP, British Petroleum, companies like Shell, those are what we call monopoly companies that uh, dominate the oil industry. So obviously, if there's a company that pushes the government to implement electrical vehicles, or maybe to implement companies that have made breakthrough technologies where people run away from using fuel, obviously because of the power that these people have, they will start to dominate, right? They'll start maybe to hold the neck of the government. Not the government itself. Obviously, there are people that are in power within the government. They approach those guys. Then they'll tell you, we'll give you such amount. Please don't do this, don't do this, because once you do this, remember we've got our properties, we've got our things. We need to protect that. So now you see what is happening is there is a concentration of wealth. There is a concentration of influence among a privileged few. These guys, they've got power to control the government, right? Dominance model. So the importance now of this is analyzing the dominance model is essential for evaluating the potential pitfalls of concentrated power and its implications for democratic governance. For example, what I'm giving now. So if people see that this is the problem, then there's need for government to make sure that these guys they don't exert too much force on them, right? So that things are a bit balanced. So it encourages critical examination of power imbalances and the need for checks and balances in the BGS relationship. So this model, it prompts discussion on the role of business and government in ensuring equitable distribution of power and resources. Then there's what we call the countervailing forces model. So this model, it illustrates the flow of power and influence among environmental factors, let's say the public, the government, the corporations. So it represents a pluralist vision where no single entity dominates. So this model suggests that power dynamics within the BGS relationship involve complex exchanges among various elements of society with no one holding absolute dominance. So let's say this one, right? This one is now in the middle of, let's say, extreme capitalism and extreme communism. So extreme capitalism, That's where you find, the private firms, a privileged few, influencing the government, influencing the market, right? Then you have, let's say, extreme communism, where the government have got total dominance. They can do whatever they want with everyone. Right? So obviously, this countervailing force model will be at the middle. It's trying to make sure that there is no power imbalance. There is there's not single entity that dominates. So definitely the importance of this model is it is valuable for recognizing the dynamic and the reciprocal nature of power relationships, right? So it emphasizes the importance of multiple competing forces shaping the BGS environment. So this model now, it encourages the understanding that business is deeply integrated into an open society responding to economic and non-economic forces, and it underscores the evolving nature of the BGS relationship over time. So you can see now from the picture there that they are environment catalysts, they are cooperation, they are the public, the society, there's the government. So obviously, there's trying to be a balance of domination there. You won't find, one side weighing more than the other sides. Now let's look at the last model, and also which is the last slide for today. The last model is what we call the stakeholder model. So the stakeholder model now, it places the cooperation at the center of mutual relationship with various stakeholders. It posits that firms have ethical duties, social responsibilities towards stakeholders impacted by their operation. So obviously, when saying that statement, we're saying that the company, it has responsibility towards its stakeholders, right? Right? Impacted by the operation. So obviously, the stakeholders, both primary, secondary, they exert varying degrees of influence on cooperation based on the nature and the intensity of their relationship. So the importance of this model now is understanding this model is pivotal for modern businesses aiming for ethical and socially responsible practices. So if a company want to be ethically responsible, socially responsible, then this model is for them, right? So this model, it expands the traditional view of business beyond profit-centric motive. So basically, when people are starting a business, they're starting a business driven by generating more money, generating profit. But now when you are implementing this model, you are running away from that. You are no longer profit-generated, profit-centric, right? You are recognizing now the diverse impacts cooperation have on different stakeholders. So remember, we said that the community is part of the stakeholder. We said that the customer is part of the stakeholder. The employees is part of the stakeholder. So all these people are being considered into play. Now, this model, it underscores the importance of considering ethical dimensions, social responsibilities in corporate decision making, fostering long-term sustainability and positive societal contribution. So you can see from the diagram there that the cooperation, takes note of all, the stockholders, governments, communities, employees, customers, the investors, but then even things outside, like, educational institution, the media, competitors, suppliers, all those are various stakeholders, and the company is making sure that it's taking note, for those things that are happening behind. So generally, guys, this is how we will be delivering, lectures for this module. So we'll try, to bring illustrations for you to understand. We'll try to bring real life, examples for you to understand, to engage, and we'll try to simplify the concept as simple as possible, so that you can understand, this concept, understand where we are coming from and where we are going. So I'm not so sure if there are any questions regarding what we have been discussing today. So if you do, please just unmute yourself, or maybe you can write on the chat box there. All right. I'm assuming that the quietness is a sign that maybe you are understanding. They say that quietness means two things. It's either people understood or people did not understand anything. So I'm assuming that you understood. I tried to explain this as much as I can. But however, I want to thank you, for tuning in. Please, we want you guys to come. Okay. Is that a question? You may go ahead. I see that someone has unmuted themselves. Oh, that's not a question. All right, that's fine. Okay, so I said that guys just come through. It will to try to simplify, you know, uh, material for you, so that you can understand your welfare is what we want to take care of, right? So you are at the core of our business. So we know at the end of the day, if we don't deliver, right, at the end of the day, you guys will not be happy. So we want you guys to be happy at the end of the day. We want you guys to pass. Because when you pass, when you are happy, then we as VUT, we are also happy. So guys, from next week, what we're going to do, we'll be sending, some offline recordings. Maybe if you have questions regarding maybe the content that you would have received as an offline recording, you can just liaise with James so that we can have maybe another meeting where we can discuss, the matters that will confuse you. But however, we are going to have another lecture, live lecture for the assignment, maybe live lecture for KCQs. If you have KCQs, I'm not so sure if you guys do have that. And then we have another live lecture, towards the end where we talk about the exam preparation. But if you guys don't have any question, then thank you for tuning in. How much are the lessons? Okay, I don't want to give you a wrong figure, right? I don't want to give you a wrong figure. Please just go to James. I think he forgot to brief me. I assumed maybe that he did brief you guys, but if I'm not mistaken, it should be 750, right? That's why I'm saying maybe I'm not mistaken, because I know some guys that are doing the lectures like this, they are paying 750 pay module, right? So definitely 750, it covers everything that I've been talking to you. It covers taking you through the assignment, taking you through the KCQ, and also taking you through the exam preparation. So it covers everything. But however, please confirm with him, right? Confirm with him. I'm not so sure if they haven't maybe changed the figure. So because they might have changed it. But as far as I know, it must be 750 per module. So another question? All right. So I don't think there's any other question. So guys, thank you so much. Oh, it's 700. Okay, thank you so much for correcting me. Yes, thank you so much. So it means that it's a bit different from this one. So thank you so much. I wasn't very sure because James didn't brief me on that one. So I assumed maybe that you did have, you did mention it to you guys. All right. But nonetheless, that's okay. 700, that's the fee. It covers everything. So if you feel that these lectures are for you, just make sure that from next week you wait for the video. I'm not so sure if you're going to have another free one. I'll talk to James. If it's another free, it means that maybe it might be a live, or maybe we're going to send it as an offline recording. So I'll have to talk to James again regarding that. But definitely next week, there is a video that you must get. So have a lovely evening. Please just wait in anticipation for the lectures. I know that you're going to enjoy this module. Good night.
Thanks.